Hello and welcome to Trigger Warning. Got a special guest with us today. It's the mayoral candidate for Greater Manchester. It's Nick Buckley. MBE, welcome to the show, mate.
Thank you very much for the invite.
Thanks. We don't get many mayoral candidates on the show.
Right.
By which I mean you are the first mayoral candidate we've had on the show. We've got quite a lot to talk about because you've had quite an interesting time of it, not just recently. Obviously, we will be talking about your candidacy, the party that you're with, and everything else. But I think it'd be good to give people, especially those who might only know of you from what they've read, to know a little bit more about you. So you were a Longsight lad.
Yep, so brought up on the Anton estate in Longsight, single parent household. I went to Central High School for boys, if people remember that. It was a failing school. It was falling apart. My teacher got stabbed 42 times in the chest by a pupil.
42?
40. It's a number stuck in my mind.
I bet it's stuck in his as well.
The teacher, female teacher, survived, never came back to our school. You could walk from one classroom to another through the walls where kids had kicked the bricks out of the walls. And the year after I left, it was finally closed down for good. So I didn't really get an education at that school.
Dragged through it.
Yeah, exactly.
One thing I'd like to point out, if anyone's not familiar with Manchester, and this will come into play later on because I think it's important, is that Longsight, for as long as I can remember, and I think we're probably similar ages, so the same, probably one of the most multicultural and diverse places in sort of certainly that side of Manchester.
Yeah.
And I point that out for something we're going to get back to later on and give people an idea of where you were raised and what it was like your school. Certainly gave a graphic representation. Now, I know you said you worked on the markets.
Yep.
I worked Berry Market when I was a kid as well. So, but what was it that got you into the charity work? What pulled you into that side?
I've had quite a varied life. So I spent up to being 30 years old trying to be a millionaire, looking for this one deal. Being self-employed, working on markets, doing some wholesaling, buying and selling, thinking one of these days I'm going to be a millionaire. And I got to my early 30s and surprisingly I wasn't a millionaire.
It didn't pan out.
It didn't pan out. And then I was our business goes up and down. So I was in a low point of the business financially. And I was at a friend's house party, about 30 years old, and my friend's wife was talking to my friend about they were recruiting at Manchester Airport for BMI Airlines, and my friend was always moaning about his job. So she said, I'll get you an application form and work at the airport. It's a nice place to work. So I said, will you get me one as well? And I was thinking I could work there for a few months, get some money, maybe get some cheap flights until my business picks up again. So I got a job at BMI airline at Manchester Airport and realised almost immediately how easy it was to work for someone else, to have a guaranteed wage at the end of the month, a poor wage, but guaranteed. And all of a sudden I could plan holidays with my friends instead of always waiting last minute to see if I could afford it. I could afford and plan going out, and I could plan my life. That was it. So I stayed there for 2-3 years, thoroughly enjoyed it. And then I'd had enough. Like, things always have a shelf life. Yeah. So I took some cheap flights and I went backpacking around the world for 2 years on my own. I went all over Asia, Australia, America, Canada, across Europe. And I came back penniless and moved back into my house. And then there were some leaflets on the door one day, some junk mail. And I'm walking to the bin to put them in, local takeaways, no claim, no fee sort of leaflets. And one said, do you want a job in Regeneration? And I was looking for a job and I thought, I'll just keep that. So I made a cup of tea, kept the leaflet, sat down, and it was off the local council. And I lived in Openshaw at the time, so it was a regeneration area. Yeah. And they were looking to recruit 4 people, local people, to work in the regeneration of their area. So I applied for the job, and me and 3 lovely ladies got the 4 positions. And that was the second time in my life that a job changed me completely. Up to that point, I'd been, just like most people, I'd been quite selfish, self-centred. I was always looking about what could I get out of this. I wasn't evil, I wasn't a Nazi or a criminal, but it was always about me. Yeah. How can I improve my life? What can I get out of this? Most people, just a normal person. But working for the council, I started working in teams and working with people whose job it was to help other people and to help communities. And they did it as a job. Not all of them were saints, but it was their job. And I realised there was jobs out there and people were trying to help other people, and it must have tapped into something I already had, some innate desire. And then I got a placement in a team in East Manchester looking at crime disorder, so looking at helping kids, stopping kids getting involved in crime. And I did that for 6 weeks, and at the end of the 6-week placement, it was plainly obvious I had a flair for that.
Well, can I just say for everyone that doesn't know, again, I used to live Beswick.
Beswick.
So I know. But for quite some time, East Manchester was the most deprived area in Great Britain. Incredibly run down. Crime was...
You could buy houses for £1.
You could, and no one would.
Yes.
Because it was terrible around there. It was absolutely... So just to give people an idea, you know, what you were moving into. It's not like you were going out to Shrewsbury Council and do something nice, or, you know, down Chipping Norton. This was a proper... deprived, after dark, dangerous place. So I just wanted to give the folks some
absolutely.
idea.
I mean, you had rows of houses vacant because nobody wanted to live in the area 20 years ago. You look at it now, it's those houses that were sold for £1. I checked a few years ago. Some of them are on the market now to be sold, and the one for like £95,000.
Well, I think one of the great crimes around there, I'm going to be honest though, is that so many of those, especially the terrorists,
all knocked down
and replaced with houses that nobody local could possibly afford. You know, £200,000 townhouses, and it's obviously the gentrification of the area. It's just the estate that's holding on there, because my mother-in-law used to live there until she didn't live anymore, basically. So we'd still go around and see how the area was changing, especially after Man City. Actually, the Commonwealth Games, wasn't it? Kicked it off.
That started the regeneration.
Because I remember there was, when they were going to build the stadium, before that we had Greymare Lane, which was still Mayoral Road, went right across, all factories and workshops. Turns out in the last years, so many of them were very flammable during the compulsory purchase order time. Many of them spontaneously just burst into flames to allow Man City to move in.
That's quite a coincidence.
I couldn't get my head around it.
Quite a coincidence.
It was a community thing, though, because we'd all go out to watch, especially when the big mills down the bottom, when they came down, that was glorious to watch. And I'm sure it solved a lot of problems across the board as well. So you went in to do regeneration and look at crime in East Manchester.
So I started working with kids, stopping them getting involved in crime, which was very successful. And I think I was successful because I came from the same streets. I wasn't a university-educated, middle-class southerner who's now sitting in front of a 15-year-old going, "Oh, Jimmy, what are you doing with your life?" I was sat there going, "Oi, don't tell me... I know you're lying to me, so don't lie, and don't lie to yourself. And if you've seen your mum's face because you've been invested, look at your mum's face now crying. You've done that to your mum." And I was tough love. And I wasn't taking any of the rubbish off him, because you're not doing him any favours. They're just pulling the wool over your eyes and pulling the wool over their own eyes.
One of the approaches that I read that you undertook that I was quite taken with was the fact that instead of going even the guilt route, the harsh route, you just told them something the most fundamental of economic situations they were in, concerning how much they earned per hour. If you'd like to tell us a little more about that, because that one really caught my attention.
Yeah, that's something we do on the streets now. So anyway, so let me just finish with the council, and I'll talk about the charity. So I did that for 10 years with the council, promoted a few times, and in the end I was working in Manchester City Centre at Buckley Street Police Station, in charge of the city centre, trying to reduce crime and antisocial behaviour. Then austerity kicked in. My team was made redundant. I took the money and thought, I'm going to carry on this work with young people, and I ploughed it into a charity. So I founded a charity, and that was nearly 10 years ago.
That was Mancunian Way.
That was Mancunian Way. And the reason why we named it that was for two reasons, because I was sick of working for the council. I was sick of people telling me how to do things the Westminster way, and this is the way we do things here. And my argument was always, we need to do it the Mancunian way. We need to fix our own problems. And the amount of people who'd say to me, "Oh, look at this report from Tennessee in America about how they reduced youth antisocial behaviour." And I'd go in, it's a different country, it's a whole different culture. What are we going to learn from them to run in East Manchester? You're just looking for an off-the-shelf solution. We know how to fix these problems. We just need to fix them and stop looking at these silver bullets somewhere else. So when I set a charity up, I wanted it to call it something like that. And also the Mancunian Way motorway, my dad built it.
Did he?
Yeah, my dad was an Irish navvy in the 60s, came over here with a pick and a shovel, and he worked on the Mancunian Way and the M6.
Well, like most Mancunians, I've spent half my life on the Mancunian Way, so thanks to your dad for that. And the amusement when it moves up and down as the lorries go past, that's what as good as it gets. So you founded Mancunian Way, a charity to do it our way, and it from what I can tell, it fair pulled up roots as well, didn't it? It did pretty well.
It's done, it's in a decade we've been running, it's done tremendous. We must have won something like 12, 15 awards. We've won awards off government, off the police, of housing associations. We then started looking at homelessness. That won a Greater Manchester Award. It was easier than I thought. And I think the reason why it was easier was because all we cared about was results. I didn't care about the press. I had no bosses. So it was like, we're doing it my way. If it fails, I'm going to take full responsibility here. But I know this is going to work. And it's about dedication and passion and hard work.
Well, I think that kind of brings us to the next part of this, because you built a successful charity.
Yep. Let me tell you the story about working with young people and their careers.
Before we get to this, let's do that.
Yep.
No, please.
Do that now?
Do that. Yep. Tell us.
So, working last 10 years on the streets across Greater Manchester, trying to get some young people to see the folly of getting involved in organised crime and selling drugs and selling cannabis. And their answer always is, it's my job, I make money, you know, I'm a gangster, I'm this, I'm that. And they're never gangsters, not people we're dealing with. They're just kids on bikes, but they call themselves gangsters. I never would meet a gangster on the street. And one of the things we designed was to show them how they're wasting their time and not earning anything. So on the street corners, sat in parks, outside shops, we'll pull out a flip chart and a pen and we say to them, people we know, build a relationship up with them first. And it's like, what time do you start work in the morning? Oh, about 11 o'clock. Right, what time do you finish? Oh, usually about midnight. How many calls do you get? Who pays for that phone you've got? How much do you sell? How much do you make from each deal you sell? What happens if you lose your stash? What happens if you get robbed? Who pays for that? What are the risks of you getting caught, going to jail? And then we work it all out and we try to work out an hourly rate they're on. And a normal kid on a push bike selling a bit of cannabis is on about £3.50 an hour. And then we say, you can earn 3 times as that much working in Aldi or Asda, with no fear of being arrested and no fear of being stabbed or shot or robbed. So who's the fool here? You're working for £3.50 an hour, and sometimes you can see their eyes open and they go, wow, I am being used, aren't I? We go, you are being used. So why don't we work with you now and let's get you a job? And it will be minimum wage to begin with because you've got no qualifications, you didn't go to school, and you've got a criminal record, but that's fine in this country because we'll give you a second chance and a third chance and a fourth chance. So let's get you a job now, minimum wage, and then once you've got that, leave it a couple of months, let's get you a better job and let's work with you again. Let's get you a better job. And let's get you a job where you can eventually buy your house, get married, have children, never sign on. Never worry about the police coming through your door at 4 o'clock in the morning and never worried about someone else stabbing you because you stood on the wrong corner. How's that for a life? And not everybody, we're not miracle workers, but quite a few of them go, I like the sound of that. And then once you've solved that one person's problem and got them on their journey, and their friends were laughing at them for talking to us and working with us, but the second they get that first monthly wage, this happens nearly every time. Their friends or one of their friends then says to us, Nick, any chance you could sort me out? I've seen what you've done with Billy. And he's got new clothes and new trainers and he's talking about going on holiday next year. And I'm still on this push bike selling a bit of cannabis. Can you help me? And that's when you know you got in with that group. And that's when you know you can change their lives for the better.
Well, obviously what appealed to me in that is the reality of it and the fact that it's this better yourself by personal responsibility approach as well, which I like, because that's the one that lasts. That's the one that sticks. Constant.
No one else is going to do anything for you apart from you.
Yes.
And if you're sat there waiting for the world to make your life better, you're going to wait a long time. If you're waiting for someone to knock on your door and offer you a great job, you're going to be waiting a long time because if you don't do that for yourself, no one's going to do it for you.
And they'd be owned for the rest of the days as well, wouldn't they? Or until at least they outlived the usefulness. I think we're prosecuting. Now, obviously, throughout those years, you've helped thousands of kids.
Thousands.
I think it's fair to say. From all backgrounds, all
Yep.
grades, all colours, your passion. Now, I know a lot of our regular viewers will think, well, this all sounds very nice. So you got a blog and did really well with charity. That's great, but doesn't seem like trigger warning. Well, of course, you'd achieved all this, and then you fell foul of cancel culture.
Yes.
Because around the time following the George Floyd killing and the BLM protests here, you said something. I'm going to put my marker down that is completely not contentious.
It's not contentious today.
Yeah.
It was.
But even it should, to me, it
Yeah.
wouldn't have been.
Yes.
Because I was aware of this. But basically, you wrote an article,
Yep.
put it out there, and the opening was, let's get this out there, Black Lives Matter.
Yes.
Finished. It's because no one really disputes that, do they? No one reasonable.
I've never found anyone who disputes that line.
Exactly. Why would you? But of course, you had something to say about the BLM organisation.
Yes.
Which is not the same as the people in the streets. Give us your thoughts on the BLM organisation that caused you these problems.
Yeah. So in the summer last year, we had the tragic death of George Floyd, and then BLM came to national attention, and we had protests. We had peaceful protests in Manchester, but they weren't peaceful everywhere, especially London and Bristol. And I'd not really heard of that organisation before. I knew it was an organisation. Most people didn't, but I knew it was an organisation. So I Googled them, and I went to their website. So not a conspiracy theory website. I went to their own website and read what they were about and what they wanted. And I read it and thought, I'm shocked. This has got nothing to do with race equality. This is a Marxist organisation that wants to, and stating they want to overthrow capitalism. And the worst thing I saw was they want to disrupt the nuclear family.
Yes.
And I sat back on that and thought about it and thought, I understand every word in that, but I don't understand what it means when you put all those words together. They want to disrupt the nuclear family. And all I could get out of that was they want to remove more fathers from the home. That's all that could mean to me. Disrupt the nuclear family, which is a mum and a dad. And it was like, no. One of the biggest problems we've got in society is a lack of fathers in the home and a lack of fathers involved in their children's lives. That's the big. If I could cure one problem in our society, it would be that. And here's an organisation that wants to make that problem even worse. And I spoke to my friends and family, and no one had heard of Black Lives Matter, the organisation. And I thought, I need to do something about this. I need to write something. And I'd wrote several blogs before. I thought I'll write something to explain what I found out. So I wrote a 650-word blog, starting off with, of course, Black Lives Matter. And I'd be interested if you could find anyone in the country who disagrees with that. But then let's look at the organisation. So I talked about what they wanted, about how none of it will improve the lives of black people in the UK, how we shouldn't be importing problems from another continent to the UK because they don't match, just like trying to fix our problems with a project somewhere else and importing it to East Manchester doesn't work, but that's not going to work either. And then I'd suggested if we wanted to improve black people's lives in the country, this is what we need to be concentrating on. Knife crime in London, that kills mostly black young men. Where's the outcry for that? There is no outcry. They're dying on our streets and no one cares. You know, female genital mutilation, male genital mutilation, that's worth a conversation. And there's all these things we could talk about. And the last point was, what about building more homes? Because that's a number one problem for all young people. Where are they going to live? And we don't even talk about that much.
No, of course not.
So if you want to improve people's lives and black people's lives, here's some of my opinions. I'm not saying they're right. I'm not saying we should do it. And then I ended then saying these protests we've got at the moment are being not hijacked, but people are being hoodwinked, thinking it's about racial justice, and it's not. It's about Marxism again.
Well, I think that's one thing a lot of people miss. Yeah, it's Marxism, but if you go and look at the writings of Marx and Engels or whatever, it's not quite there, because then it goes into critical theory,
Yes.
which give us critical race theory, which is dreadful,
Yes.
queer theory, which is being hugely damaging to everybody.
Yeah.
You know, all these line of thoughts about smashing all of our establishments,
Yeah.
how we work, how we operate as individuals, and creating this unattainable.
Yeah. Tear it all down.
Yeah.
And let's build utopia.
That's the problem, though, isn't it? No one quite spells out how the utopia works. But I've always said, the people that state this, they don't see themselves as the people in the fields, do they?
No.
They're always the ones that will tell you how to be in the fields, as if that will be very different from any communism we've had before, or indeed capitalism that we had before. Because like you, I did the same thing. I went to their website because I noticed the fundraiser, and I thought, oh, what are they raising the funds for? Because it's the first thing I always wonder.
Follow the money.
When a new charity pops up, like recently down in London, it was, do you remember Reclaim the Streets? It was around the time of the Ripper and all that sort of thing. When up popped Reclaim These Streets and raised a huge sum of money, and it's, where's that all going?
Yeah.
And now it's being dispersed to various different charities, and it's just... So that was an exercise in what exactly? So it's very similar. Now, if people go and look at it, there'll be people watching this now already convinced we're shocking racists just for saying the truth about the Black Lives Matters organisation.
Yep.
But what you said is entirely based on what they put on their website.
Yes.
Exactly. And as a consequence of you pointing out what they wrote on their website and then offering some possible actual real-world solutions, you were rewarded with being called a fascist, a white supremacist on national radio.
Yep.
I'm not going to repeat the name of the woman that did it. I'm not giving her the oxygen. That was a terrible interview she gave. And I'm sure that if you'd been a lottery winner, you'd have smashed her out for libel as well, or slander.
I have legal action pending at the moment.
Well, then good reason not to go too deeply into it. But that was horrific. So you've become this Nazi-like figure.
Yep.
Now, because we followed each other for a while on social, never really interacted, but we've always been around, a like here, a like there, a thumbs in, a thumbs there. And I've seen people accuse you of this. And I thought it was important during this, because granted, you're not Jesus Christ, you're a human being, but that's why I mentioned alongside right at the beginning, you were not raised in this pure 1950s atomic white area. You were raised in a poorer area of Manchester.
Yep.
You've been part of a Manchester charity that supported kids.
Yep.
White, black, whatever, kids.
Yep.
And all of a sudden for this, there was uproar.
Yeah.
But of course...
Only for a short period of time.
This is what's even more alarming.
Yeah.
A tiny little uproar, but I mean, I think it's better in your words if you tell us what resulted from that uproar.
Yeah, so I wrote the blog, and then I was obviously guilty of writing while white. That was the accusation, that a white man is not allowed to have an opinion on black affairs, on anything to do with a black organisation. So somebody set up a petition online to have me fired from the charity I founded. And that got 450 signatures, and some people were, maybe fairly critical of me. I'd like to say I don't profess that I know everything. I may be wrong, but I'm entitled to an opinion. So the charity board, who I appointed, panicked. Unfortunately, they couldn't handle the pressure, and they did what I think the only way to describe it is cowardice, really. They decided that the only way to stop this is to sack me.
From your own charity.
From my own charity. So they emailed me with a one-line sentence that I'm terminated. That was a word they used. Terminated.
These are people that you'd worked with for years.
And some of them personal friends.
Terminated.
I knew one for 15 years. We were planning on going on holiday together. Another two I knew for 6 and 9 years, and one I'd known for about a year. So I felt sorry for her. She didn't know what she'd got herself into. But the other 3 people should have known better. They sacked me. The next week, I was a broken man. I was completely defeated. I don't know. I was embarrassed. I thought maybe I had crossed the line. And the more I looked at what I wrote and the more I looked at things, nobody came to my defence. Not one person came to my defence. Some people phoned me up and said, I support you, Nick, and this is terrible, but I don't want to say anything online. And it's like, well, actually, I don't blame you.
I hear that a lot,
I don't want you to get into trouble. And after a week, the old Nick came back, and it was like, no, I'm not having this. Do you not do you not know where I've come from? Do you not know what I've overcome in my life? And I'm going to have a handful of bullies online think they're going to beat me. And I'm going to have 3 cowards sat on my board thinking they're going to get rid of me. I don't think so. So I thought, right, no, I'm going to fight back. So I went to the Mail on Sunday. They wrote a big article, 1-page article on me. That then changed the world. The day that got published, which was a fortnight after me being fired, not one online bully ever mentioned my name ever again when that went national. And the reason is because I then got thousands and thousands of messages from all over the world telling me that I'd done the right thing and here's support. I had one businessman in the UK offering to pay my wages if I had no money. And luckily I had some savings, so I didn't need any financial support.
Lovely gesture, though.
But the amount of support that came through to me made me realise I was right. And then by that point, I joined the Free Speech Union, which everyone needs to join the Free Speech Union. If you like to talk, you need to join,
yes,
because you don't know when you're going to need them. They got me a solicitor pro bono, free of charge. He looked at my case and looked at my contract and went, clear breach of contract. They cannot fire you for something you said in your personal capacity. Because all this was on my personal blog.
Yeah.
This wasn't Nick, the chief exec of a charity. This wasn't the charity speaking. It was me on my personal social media. So they wrote, so solicitor and me designed a letter. We wrote to the board, and I basically said, I'm going to sue you all. I'm coming after your houses. And we opened the door a little bit and said, unless you resign en masse, then I'm going to sue you personally for breach of contract. Within 18 hours, it was over.
Finished.
Because they'd already proved to me they couldn't handle stress. They'd already proved to me that they will bend with any force that goes against them. And all of a sudden, I was the force, and they capitulated just like they did with the mob. And the upsetting thing is, if they'd have stood by me weeks before, we would have been unbeatable, because I'd have stood by them.
Yeah.
And I'd have died for them, but they just wanted the easy way. They wanted the noise to stop.
Everyone's terrified of the mob.
They were terrified.
And no one stops to think that less than, 1% of the population uses Twitter.
Yeah.
That noise is nothing. No. It's an irrelevance. Yes, they can reach out and hurt you, but only because people are so weak as to think that mob has any actual power.
Absolutely.
They're gifted all of the power,
yes,
that they have. So I let them just block and dislike me because they can't cancel me.
Yep.
What can you do? Get me banned from Twitter?
It's a bit like voodoo. Voodoo only works when you believe it to
in
be
it.
true.
Absolutely. And we see it with big companies capitulating.
Yep.
Was it Innocent Smoothies?
Yes.
That I've forgotten her name and I feel terrible. An old lady, basically, on Twitter. Someone said, "Why are you following this fascist turf?" An old, you know what I mean? And Innocent by return straight away. Oh yeah, you're right. They're terrified.
Yorkshire tea. I'll never drink Yorkshire tea again.
But they're terrified, and I don't know why. Because none of these people buy your stuff anyway.
Yep.
You see it with films. Films, they don't pay for those films. They're not fans. Like the Star Wars thing is so toxic now, it's unreal. And in my opinion, we've gifted power to those illest capable of handling the power that they've got. We're seeing kids being doxxed, families threatened for words, for nothing, for opinions. And that's what infuriates me.
I think it's deeper than this now. These companies and these businesses and these public institutions, I don't think now it's to do with fear. I think they've bought into this because all their younger staff and middle managers have all been through university. They've all been brainwashed.
Some companies
into
are more
this.
captured than others.
Yes.
Reddit, for example.
Yes.
Reddit is it's not really one for going into too much here, but that's been captured on a massive scale. And it makes it sound sort of conspiratorial, doesn't it? But you've only got to look. It's not hinting. It's not saying, well, you know, I've joined a couple of dots here, guys. It's just there. They're just literally handing everything over. But all we see from any of these companies that are captured is an inevitable decline.
And that's called the free market.
Yeah, because it hits the rest of the country.
Yeah. I don't want companies and individuals not to be able to believe what they want to believe, because I want a free society where we can choose to believe what we want to believe. Absolutely for that. But with businesses, well, then you will find out if you're right or wrong by your bottom line.
Yes.
And you will go out of business if people don't want what you're selling. And if they do want what you're selling, then fantastic. Then I was wrong and you was right. And that's how it needs to work itself out.
But what we've seen so far is with the political parties, they've decided to, for some reason, appease Twitter.
Yes.
Because if you listen to Twitter, Labour were going to landslide the last election. We were live when those exit polls came in. And it was like, told you, I didn't vote for Boris. Yeah. But the fact is, we told people that's what's going on. And they were all like, how? We were so sure.
Because
we were
you don't
convinced.
speak to anybody else apart from people who believe what you believe.
The Lib Dems. Right the way up there on Jackson.
Yep.
The Green Party, they're gone. Yeah. Completely gone. And this is what happens. You get this little dopamine hit, don't you, of affirmation on the internet. I feel all special now. Yeah. These people love us. There's 40,000 followers. That must be special. Yeah. And all of a sudden you get to the polls and it's like, crickets. Yeah. Oh, we got this wrong. It's because
Brexit is another example.
100%. Yeah, people still can't believe it happened.
Yep.
I mean, I couldn't believe it happened, to be honest with you. I didn't think it was going to go that way. I watched
If I thought there was a chance of winning, I'd have stayed up and watched it.
Yeah.
I went to bed. I voted for Brexit, and then I went to bed thinking, not a chance.
Yeah, I made my stand.
And when I woke up in the morning, I turned my phone and I went, I should have. That would have been one of the best nights of my life. I should have stayed up all night, but I didn't because I didn't think we were going to win.
No, I didn't either. But we did.
Yes.
Because I voted for Brexit as well, because obviously I'm a dreadfully racist little Englander, and that can be the only reason I wouldn't want to be part of the EU. So you got the charity back.
Yes.
It's going great guns.
Yes, came back. I'd been missing 5 weeks. Charity was in disarray over those 5 weeks. Nothing had been done. Staff were still working the projects, but behind the scenes was falling apart. So that took me a couple of months to sort out. Some of the funders were worried about what had gone on. Some funders pulled out. So I spent the next couple of months then securing the charity, which I've done now. And then I decided there was something missing. I decided I've got my life back, I've got my job back, I've got my charity back. But I feel the best way of describing it was what someone tweeted this to me. They said, Nick, you may have got your job back, but you've not won. And I thought, I just stuck with me. It's like, well, I've not won. I've not beat anybody. I've not changed anything. I've just managed to get my job back. And the people who did this to me are still out there, and they're probably just looking for their next victim.
Oh, yeah.
So am I the type of person to now pull the ladder up and go, I'm all right, Jack. I'm going to keep my mouth shut now, and I'm going to get on with my nice life. And that's not me. And I decided, no, this fight's not over. I'm going to make sure that the people who attacked me and tried to destroy my life will rue the day they ever messed with me. And that's what I'm sort of doing now. I'm making sure that things that need talking about are spoken about in a polite, sensible, informed way. I'm not a crank. I don't shout about things. I talk about from a position of knowledge and experience. I've got decades of experience in social issues. You know, I've advised the Prime Minister's policy unit several times on these issues. I was awarded an MBE after the Queen of England for the work I've done. So I'm no crackpot. But we need people to stand up and talk, and it's the emperor's new clothes. If someone doesn't stand up and go, he's in the all together, then everybody else just goes along with the lie. And I don't want people going along with the lie anymore now. And you may believe it, which is great, but if you don't believe it, you should have the confidence and the free will and the protection to stand up to say, I don't believe in this. I believe these things instead.
But not only that, conversely, if you do believe in it, you should have the courage in your convictions not to victimise those that don't.
Argue your point.
Yeah.
Nobody ever wants to argue
Stand your ground. Don't destroy
me.
People.
Exactly.
Don't ruin their lives. Don't take food out the kids' mouths. Debate them. Argue them. Now, the get out of jail free card for these is I don't debate Nazis, because everyone's a Nazi.
Yeah, of course.
Everyone I don't like is Hitler. Them's the rules. So no debate. Well, I'm afraid there's going to be.
Yeah.
Because what will happen, and it's not something I say with glee either, but historically, if you look at any society, it's always a pendulum. And we're swinging very far to the left now. And I say that as someone who is a liberal. Not with the liberal, but a liberal.
Yeah.
It's swung way too far to the left. So it's becoming authoritarian.
Of course it is.
Fascistic, just dreadful. My concern is how far it's going to swing
the other way.
That way.
Yeah.
Because these guys ruin your life. When those guys get a lot of power, everyone's got problems. And that's my problem.
I think you'll find both those extremes are the same people.
Yeah, they just wear different uniforms.
Yep.
Just slightly different uniforms. But the ones on the right tend to be a bit more together. I don't know if you ever noticed it, just that bit sharper, bit more at it, historically speaking. But then again, I put traditional people who are on the far left on the right anyway, like Mao and Stalin. And I can't see them as left. I try. I fail. My political compass is very simple.
I think it's the other way around. I think they are on the left, but Hitler was on the left.
Yes, he was. He was a
National Socialist Party.
But to be fair,
it's not left and right. It's a circle.
But I'm gonna pull that out a little because that was very much just a useful phrase, wasn't it, for the Nazi Party? Because they really weren't terribly socialist. But then again, full-blown socialism kills a lot of people as well. I think we need a simpler system. Just decent people and arseholes. I think that makes life a lot easier because then it stops people being able to identify their way out of trouble.
Yeah.
But I think that's what we're seeing now. Huge problems. I get it to a lesser degree. Like I say, usually I get blocked because what can they say about me? You know, what they're going to say. My character, very hard to smear. It just, that's who I am. This is what I've done. You can't get at me. But other people, I see them torn to pieces.
Yeah.
So, as part of your stand, you're running as Mayor for Greater Manchester.
Yes.
For the Reform Party.
Yes.
I got it right. Too many parties beginning with R now.
There is.
So what brought you into the Reform Party? Before we get into what you want to achieve, what brought you to the Reform Party for this?
It happened in December. In December, when I read in the Manchester Evening News that Greater Manchester Police had been put into special measures for failing, and to be the second force ever to be put in special measures, I thought, what is going on? And I realised part of the failing was this whole, part of it's the woke agenda. It's the fact that we don't want to solve problems anymore because they're difficult. So what we'll do is we'll look for something else to talk about instead of fixing our problems. And we become really bad in society now about fixing anything. We don't seem to fix anything anymore. We just move on and blame the patriarchy and blame white supremacy or blame someone for the problems. We just don't want to fix them. And then my big bugbear over the last 10 years is rough sleeping. I've run rough sleeping projects across Manchester city centre, and I've stood 3 years ago as a local councillor on rough sleeping in Manchester city centre and came nowhere. And I'm looking at the rough sleepers still in our city centre.
Weren't they supposed to be all sorted out by now?
Well, they may be gone now because Andy Burnham said he was going to eradicate rough sleeping in 3 years, and it's now been 4 years.
It's a bit behind.
And it's reduced a little bit, but I put that down to COVID, really. Maybe not to not to what
the same
he's
opportunities because also it's worth letting the good people know you catch a lot of flack because you have a very a proactive stance on homelessness.
Yes,
on giving people personal accountability and supporting them rather than doing it for them.
Yes,
about pushing them forward to improve their lives.
I call it tough love.
And again, you get a ton of stick for that because that makes you triple Hitler now?
Yes.
About triple Hitler now. On my scale of Hitlers, you've got 3. That's pretty good going. So that's when you stood as a councillor. Which was that for the Manchester ward? Or
for the Deansgate ward in the city centre. So I didn't come anywhere. And I realised that was because I was an independent and you've got no machine behind you,
and it's
no
Manchester.
push, and it's Manchester. And that was the end of that. So then in December at Christmas, I decided I've had enough. I've had enough of a Labour mayor who is using Greater Manchester as a stepping stone to the Labour leadership and hopefully to number 10 Downing Street. And that's why he's achieving nothing in Greater Manchester, because he does want to try in case he fails, and that'll be used against him when he runs for PM or something. So it's best to do nothing, and I can't get blamed for anything. Well, I'm the opposite. I'm one of these people who says, I'm going to give this a go. And if I fail, then I need criticising. I'll put my hands up. and I'll resign if I make mistakes, and if things don't work, then come after me. That's fine, because I'm going to give this a really good go. And that's what we need in Greater Manchester.
Yeah.
A mayor to look at some of these problems and go, oh, we're going to sort this out. So not only has he not sorted out any of the problems, he's run Greater Manchester Police into the dust.
Yeah.
We've got children being raped and not being investigated. We've got 85,000 crimes over the last year that were not recorded and not investigated.
But we have been recording non-crime hate incidents.
Yes.
It's important to know we've kept on top of people who are upset on Twitter.
So we'll pay police officers to sit at their computer going through Twitter and Facebook and phoning people up and recording what they've said on their personal Facebook and Twitter. But trying to get that officer out of the office and on the streets to catch a real criminal, oh, we won't do that. And those officers want to be on the streets.
Of course they do.
I've trained police officers.
That's why they joined the police force.
Exactly. I've trained them. I used to work in police stations in my old council job. I know police officers go into the job to catch criminals. They don't go into the job.
Problem, isn't it? All the senior police officers are politicians now.
They are.
And I think that's a massive problem.
Well, when I started working with
politicians, career police officers, they're not thinking about the job, they're thinking about their position.
Most people think the police are independent. And 20 years ago, when I first started working with the police through the council, I was shocked that they're not independent. Your local councillors will tell police inspectors what to do in their area. The chief of the council will have weekly meetings with the chief constable or the superintendent, telling them what they want done in their area. And the mayor is in charge of the whole police force. The whole organisation is a political organisation. And if you want promoted, once you get up to inspector level, it's all fine. Once you get above that, so superintendents, then you're playing the game. Because if you want promoted, you've got to play that political game. You've got to deliver what those politicians want if you want promoting. And I can give you a case in Clayton.
Yeah, please.
So where there was these big council flower pots, so maybe 6 foot long, 4 foot wide, probably weighed a couple of tons. And every Friday and Saturday night, some drunk lads would tip them over. And it was a pain, and it was antisocial, and we should catch them and we should prosecute them. But because one of the local councillors was a senior councillor as well, had more power, we had undercover police officers sat in cars opposite the flower beds for weeks and never caught anybody. And I'm pulling my hair out going, we can do this. I know it's antisocial. I know it's a priority for local residents and it needs clamping down on. But we've got undercover coppers.
In the grand scheme
guarding flower beds.
Last year, someone attacking, a gang of lads, one with a pickaxe attacking a car and its occupants, and no one was there. But we can guard the flower pots.
We can guard the flower pots.
I will sleep better tonight.
Yes.
Knowing that there's people out there looking after our horticulture. Yes. Our horticulture is doing very well, thank you. In Clay, because that's the biggest problem in Clayton.
So there's one tiny example of where we're wasting police resources.
Yeah, and that's just one.
Yeah, that's one tiny example. And it's all because the politicians are having too much influence on what the police do. And senior police officers can only get promoted if they play the game.
Of course, that's where we end up.
And this all stops. If I'm elected, this stops day one.
Good. Well,
absolutely day one.
I was going to say, with where you are with the homelessness, with the police situation, with freedom of speech, that'll be refreshing to have a politician that believes in freedom of speech. How does this, again, just what brought you to the Reform Party with this? I know you ran as an independent, that got nowhere, so you were probably looking for some kind of
I was looking for a party. It couldn't be Labour. No. I've never voted for Labour in my life, and they're worse now than they've ever been, so Labour was not even worth looking at. Conservatives may have been a possibility, but no, just from the way they've handled the lockdowns, and they're beginning to turn into a woke party themselves with this huge green agenda. So I'm not too keen on the Tories at the moment. Lib Dems, absolutely not. They're worse than Labour.
They wouldn't let you anyway.
No, exactly. And then it was Reform, and then Reform used to be called the Brexit Party, so now their main aim now is reforming government, which is what I'm trying to do. Brand new party set up in December, so the timing was perfect. And because it's a new party, I thought if I can get in with them, I will be able to influence their policies, their manifesto. I'll be able to say this is what we should do and shouldn't do, because I'm not the sort of person to join a party if their manifesto is half the stuff I don't believe in, because then I'm just as two-faced as the career politicians who do that.
Well, this is an interesting thing. Online, I saw someone ask you, and you didn't answer fairly. So this is BNP version 3.0.
Yes.
Now, I had a look at that comment. Now, I'm of an age, I remember the National Front, what they were really like. They weren't what the people now call Nazi. They were real hardcore thugs. The BNP, nobody's got much time for the BNP. Why would they?
They're gone now.
Yeah, they're basically a boogeyman to bring out every once in a while. But what I did after reading it, because there might be something I'm unaware of, I went to look at the manifesto of Reform.
Yep.
Much the same as I've looked at Nigel Farage, because I've been desperately trying to see how he became the most racist man in Britain. For all the things I might not agree with the guy on, I'm really struggling to find him advocating any kind of actual racial hate.
Never has.
It's been it's tricky that the head of the party...
his accent doesn't help.
No.
That's part of the problem. Again, with me, it's the accent. The accent is like, common, working class, council estate, bit of a scumbag, or must be racist.
That's it. It's got to be.
It has to be.
It's like me and my haircut.
Yeah.
Because obviously you only go bald when you're racist.
Yes.
That's how it happens. Anyone that isn't keeps a full head of hair. The minute you start with the racism, out it comes.
Yeah.
Graham's is going. I have to get that in every show I am, so... So I looked through it all. I couldn't find any racism. I saw someone put a party actually pushing for the reform of our archaic and dreadful system. The House of Lords, I still can't quite get my head around the way the whole thing works. And yet, because Nigel Farage has been out on a boat going, look how many people are going over on these boats, everyone's decided that's what it is. It's a single issue party. I don't even want to get into the migration issue, because whilst... regardless of any international laws on people claiming asylum, we've always taken people in claiming asylum. I do have issues with boatloads of blokes. I never see the women and kids, So I get it. I get from both sides, and I know how the argument's turned. But I'm seeing issues that stick to beat you with already.
To be fair, I think there's only been 3 posts like that.
I read the whole conversation around it, obviously, especially when I knew you were coming on.
Yeah.
I don't just read who replies to it. I go and look at what they're talking about.
Yeah.
Because it's a great way to learn. If you want to learn about someone, learn who hates him.
Yeah.
It's one of the best ways. And most of what I've seen is knee-jerk mob thinking with very little basis in reality.
It's people who know what I stand for. And because I don't stand for what they stand for,
you must stand against it.
I must be evil, because they know they're right. They know if they were born in a different time, they would be Gandhi. They would be Mandela. They would be Dr. King. They know that for sure.
Oh, 100%.
And if they were alive now, they would be stood next to those people, because they're virtuous. Only they know what's right and wrong and what's good and evil.
I'm no expert, but I imagine Dr. Martin Luther King, if he were in Manchester, would look at the mural of a criminal man and say, it is terrible that he died the way he did. Why have you got a mural of him?
Yeah.
Why do we do that? Why would we do that? Are there no more virtuous black people who have suffered terribly and died unnecessarily than George Floyd?
Yep.
Pumped full of fentanyl and everything else.
A foreigner.
Yeah, and why is it here?
What has that got to do with Manchester?
Surely we can do better.
Yep.
Because I think it's an insult to the black community as well, as far as I'm concerned. This is your hero, this is.
Yep.
A man that robbed a pregnant woman.
Yeah, stuck a loaded gun in her pregnant belly while him and his friends robbed her.
Lovely mural.
Absolutely.
See, that's my problem with. But the minute you mention that, you're racist. It wouldn't matter to me what colour he was.
Yep.
Wouldn't matter to me in the slightest, because anyone that does that shouldn't get a mural. We wouldn't have a Jimmy Savile mural.
Absolutely.
Gary Glenn. Now, he did a lot for charity. Why can't we have a mural for him?
Yeah.
Oh, because of the other stuff that he did. Goes without saying. But apparently, this is okay. But see, I can say that, and people expect it. If you come out and say, I'm not keen on this mural, racist.
I've already said it. If I'm elected mayor, I'll do my best to get that painted over.
Let's get something better, Paul.
It's an insult. It's an insult to the people of Manchester that the best we can do is a career foreign criminal on our wall. I don't think so.
Who was only famous for dying.
Yes. And I think he'd been in jail 9 times.
He was a busy boy.
Yeah.
Lots of cocaine charges.
Yes.
Again, that house invasion. The trial starts today as we record this. Actually,
Yep.
the trial of the police officer is going on, and we'll see what happens there. I think politically they've got to send him down. I don't think either it's that or it's going to go off.
I've
what
got a
bothers
funny
me is
feeling he's going to be found innocent, and there's going to be riots like.
Oh yeah, but the problem is we'll have him here.
Yep.
We'll riot here.
Yep.
We didn't do it. Our police didn't do it.
Yeah.
I get accused of this all the time. I don't know if the guy came to fit my Virgin Telly. It was a black fellow. We had a great chat about all this because he's always nice. He was really astute, and we spoke about politics, history, even about reparations. He made a very convincing argument for.
Yep.
Very convincing. It was refreshing to hear. Not just give me, you racist. He made it really interesting. It was very good. But we spoke about the fact that we're going to have a riot over here for nothing.
Yep. It started already, hasn't it?
For something a policeman did abroad that we have no control over. But people say to me, it's all right for you. Your ancestors had slaves. My ancestors were like coal miners in Nottinghamshire. They were slaves. They were basically slaves. They died young and horribly after being worked to death. My family didn't have slaves. David Cameron's family, they had plenty of slaves. No, they're slave owners. But, they put it onto all of us.
Well, let's take a couple of 100 years before that. So before we had the transatlantic slave trade, we had the Berber slave trade in North Africa. And North Africans took, some estimates reckon about 1.5 million white Christian Europeans, captured them in piracy and sold them into slavery.
Oh, we don't talk about that. Well,
we don't,
Manchester, there's a statue of Abraham Lincoln here.
Yep.
I've spoken about this on the show before. They don't know the stand our workers took against slavery in America.
Stopped importing the cotton because of what it support.
At great local cost.
Yep, and it drove many people into real abject poverty.
And put us at odds with Liverpool as well.
Yeah, but they knew. And the reason why they did that was because 100 years before that, British people were being kidnapped and sold into slavery. And every time we had that, that'd be national news. Fishermen were scared of going out fishing because when they were out fishing, their villages would be raided by North African pirates and everybody would be taken into slavery. Yeah. So slavery has happened to every person in every country of every race in every time of human history until the British Royal Navy stopped it.
Yeah, didn't the American Navy go to war with some Arab states as well over slavery?
They joined us eventually with the fight against slavery.
Eventually, but I think the problem is it's not about who ended it for me, because that all ends up being deals and backroom deals, because of course they had to compensate a lot of the slave owners, because how else would you get them to stop? But I think if we focus more on this is what the common man did, why don't we stop looking at what the people who they're not like us. They are no more representative of white people than George Floyd is of black people. What has a common man done? And we can look to things like the heritage here in Manchester. The fact that neither you nor me or anyone on our social level was responsible for Windrush, nor would we be. I think we're so blinded by the class system now that we all get dragged into things that have got nothing to do with us. Let's focus on what brings us together more than what pushes us apart. Because where I was raised, where I am now, everywhere else, there's no ghettos. Everyone just trundles along. It's the way I grew up in Manchester. I didn't know there was a problem until I saw outside of Manchester, and then of course the Moss Side riots. But that was a different sort of social problem there. But for the most part, I don't remember growing up around racists or anything else. It just we're all
extremely lucky to be born or live in this country. It's
most privileged.
One of the most tolerant countries in the world.
Also the most privileged time in
richest
history.
in the world. Social state, NHS, free school. But yet it's not enough for some. Some people, they have to find something else to moan about because life can always be better. And at the moment, this is what this is. This is just people moaning about everything else. Because I think we're programmed to worry. We're programmed to moan because that's what would keep us from making mistakes and letting the saber-toothed tiger eat us. So we have to worry about what's behind that bush. worry about what's the other tribe going to do to us. So
Of course, now we make it somebody else's responsibility. You tell me what's behind that bush. Don't you dare get it wrong. You know, that's the problem we've got to. I think a lot of it boils down to personal accountability.
Personal responsibility, absolutely.
And also,
that's part of the problem. Is
we are dealing with a whole generation that seem never to have been told the word no. You know, that's really how it seems to me. It's just like, no. It's like, well, that's not fair. Possibly, but no. I have that discussion with my 8-year-old. I'll tell him, all right, look, no console tonight. No bingo. That's not fair. I agree. But it is how it is. No protest. Doesn't cancel. It's like, oh, all right, well, I'm not happy, but what lesson am I going to learn from this? The lesson is don't get caught. But, you know, in general, that's how it works. But what they want is, that's not fair. I'm going to punish you for that. Make my life fair. Just how I see it. Nobody, don't care about anything else. Everything I want, and only what I want. Because anything you want that doesn't tally with what I want makes you bad. Because you're not as good as me.
Yeah.
I'm very good. People on social media tell me I'm good all the time. This affirmation bubble. I mean, I could go on for hours how I believe the algorithms designed to keep people on social media are having a massively negative effect on society. Hugely. Some people think that's on purpose. I'm more inclined to believe it was out of greed.
Yeah.
And then once they learned they could do it, they had to fiddle with it as well, because Facebook did an experiment. How can we affect people's moods? Using our algorithms. Turns out very badly. Yeah. Very badly. So as we go on, we're getting nowhere. So you're going to run for mayor of Manchester.
Yes.
If you were to get in, if it happened, were to get in, girls, to give people an idea as well, it's only fair. Manchester is die-hard Labour.
Yep.
Die-hard. It's almost impossible. My MP is so comfortable that when I contacted her last year, saying my mother-in-law's being left to die in a care home, the doctor won't go out to see her. Suspect COVID. It's not. It's a bit of pneumonia. She needs some antibiotics. Yep. He won't come out. We're terribly sorry. She's a bit busy to talk to you at the moment. Yeah. We'll do what we can. I looked what my MP was busy with. Tweeting about Mike Pence.
Yep.
Because that's important in Manchester. You know, Andy Burnham phoned me up. Nothing happened, but he phoned me up. Tried to swear a little bit as well, because obviously that made him one of the boys. And but my MP, so comfortable. So it's like that in Manchester. What Nick is fighting is not just uphill, it's uphill. But if you were to get in...
It's only uphill if the people who don't vote.
Exactly, because everyone else is like, well, my dad voted. So
because not even that, because the turnout at these elections, the last mayoral election, the turnout was 28%.
Well, we didn't want one, did we? We voted against it.
We voted against it, but we had to have one because the people of Greater Manchester don't know what's good for them.
No, we've got no idea.
So, you know, you're a simple folk. You know, you don't really know what's good for you, but we do because we're career politicians. So we asked you what you wanted and you told us, but we're going to give you what we're going to give you anyway.
We think you're wrong.
Yeah, exactly.
Because Manchester's never been a hotbed of innovation.
Yeah. But if we have to have a mayor, let's get a doing mayor who will do something. Yeah. So people who are not voting, which is over 70% of the population of Greater Manchester, well, if you want a better mayor, if you all went out and voted, you could get whoever you wanted.
Oh yeah, I didn't say you didn't have a chance.
Yeah, I mean, I wanted
to give people an idea what it's like up here. Yes. I'm sure where everyone else lives, it's very much the same. Yeah. But you know how it is in these areas. Well, my dad voted Labour, my granddad voted Labour. Yeah. I just vote Labour.
Yeah, that is beginning to crumble.
It has to at some point. It's impossible. You can't have a democracy where there's only one party. Yeah. But let's say you get in.
Yep.
Okay, what date's the election?
6th of May.
So on the 7th of May,
yep,
you rock up at the town hall.
Yep.
What's the first thing you're going to do?
First thing we're going to do is we're going to look at rough sleeping. I'm going to finally end rough sleeping in Greater Manchester in the first year.
In the first year?
Big ask. And if I don't do it, I need sacking or I'll resign. Because we just can't. I'm not going to say the full term of 5 years because we're just pushing it off again.
Kicking it down the road, aren't
if
you?
I can say the first year, that means the day I turn up at that office, that means me and my whole team and the whole infrastructure behind me all know where they stand. And if people aren't delivering on this, they'll be gone because I have to go at the end of 1 year if we don't deliver it. So I'm going to give myself some really tough targets. It's the only way to get things done. That's number one. Number 2 is we're going to look at Greater Manchester Police.
Yes.
What are you doing? No more dressing up as multicoloured bumblebees and joining.
Wasn't that about 80 grand a costume or something?
I think it was $1,000 or something.
No, it's a lot more. It was about a solid week's wage, wasn't it, on a costume?
Yeah, just so you can attend a Pride event. Police need to attend a Pride event for public order. But I don't want police officers dancing at festivals, at carnivals, at anything.
Be policemen.
I want police to be professional. So police will be shaving. You know, I'll be stopping police getting tattoos on their necks and their faces because it doesn't look professional. And every police officer will call every member of the public sir or madam. None of this, all right, mate, are you rolling around the floor with a criminal and you're calling him a muppet as you're trying to put the handcuffs on him? You're a public servant and we expect some decent customer service off you. We need to professionalise the police force. That will be my second priority there. We'll get police officers from behind desks checking your tweets, getting them on the streets, arresting criminals, and we need to make a pledge, and the pledge is that we're going to end child rape. Because how I can sit here today and say we need to end child rape is absolutely astounding that I have to say that.
I was reading recently and some of the stuff that was sent to me about the cases that have been ignored in Greater Manchester of organised gangs.
Yep.
And hundreds of children.
Yes.
And it's just been
ignored,
pushed away.
I've saved children from being raped and being sexually abused in my charity. We've got about a dozen cases that we've done. I know what it's like. I know. I've saved kids being groomed into criminal gangs who are not being sexually exploited. We need to put a clamp on this. We need to say no more.
I'm sure the police would love to be able to do that as well.
I've got police officers who I've worked and trained phoning me up saying
the coppers don't want to see this slide.
No.
Not a chance. I've never met one yet that wouldn't have that.
How can we let down children in our society? It's just absolutely shocking. And the biggest shock was how Andy Burnham allowed the Chief Constable to resign. So
it should have been
you've been in
sacked.
post for 4 years, you're on a couple of 100,000, whatever you're on, and you're responsible for the police, responsible for these 80,000 crimes, responsible for child rape not going uninvestigated. And we're going to let you resign on your terms with full benefits and walk away as if nothing's happened. If you was in the public sector, you'd be sacked.
Oh,
sorry, the private sector. You would be sacked. And that's what I'll be looking at within GMP higher echelons is who there needs sacking for incompetence and for wasting public money. And then we're going to be looking at that as well. I'm going to set up a hotline for anybody to report incompetence and waste of taxpayers' money within the public sector. So police, probation, NHS. If you work in Greater Manchester and you can see waste or incompetence, you report it and we're going to highlight it. Because unless we learn from our mistakes, we repeat them. So in the private sector, if you make a mistake, it gets talked about.
Yeah.
And people learn from it and go, right, this went wrong in Oldham office, so make sure we don't do it in this office. In the public sector, you make a mistake at a council, and I've worked there when it's happened, and what happens is, shh, how do we hush this up?
What can we grandfather him into?
Yes. So you hush everything up, you don't learn from it, and everybody else makes the same mistakes. But I want to shine some daylight onto the organisations we fund as taxpayers.
I know it doesn't fall under the mayor's view. Some pretty heavy things you're going to get into.
I'm going to be very unpopular.
That's good.
With those organisations.
That's good. That's what they need right now. What can the mayor do on freedom of speech? What can the mayor do about that?
Set an example. That's all he can do. And that's what I will do. So I'm the sort of person anyway, is if you ask me a question, you're going to get a truthful answer off me. And this sounds awful, but I don't care if you like it or not. You've asked me a question. Here's my truthful answer. If you don't like it, that's on you. Don't ask me the question if you don't want the truth.
Yeah.
You're going to get an honest opinion off me. And that's all I can do as mayor to champion free speech. Because it's under threat at the moment.
Massively.
And the biggest under threat part of it at the moment is self-censorship. The amount of people who want to say something but won't. So they're self-censoring, and that's a scary part. And if we go down this path, what's going to eventually happen is we're going to have somebody who comes along, who's a great orator, a great speaker, and he's going to start tapping into some of this resentment.
It's almost as if we've seen that happen before, isn't it?
Exactly. And all of a sudden, we're going to have this person, who's goose-stepping around.
We were talking the other day, even if we don't go quite to the heights of Tommy Robinson.
Yeah.
If action had been taken against grooming gangs, we'd been more honest. No one would have ever heard of him.
No.
I've had him on one of my shows. There's a million blokes like him out there.
Yes.
He just tapped in, said the right things. Lovely big house now. But whatever you think of the guy, if you really hate Tommy Robinson, you might well be part of the machine that put him where he is.
Yes.
And that's the way I firmly believe it. And just so you know, my end response to Tommy was, I will take you at your word that what you hate is extremism. I will then inform you that you're the worst thing possible for your organisation. But, he says it, no one else will.
If you keep pushing these things underground, this is where they fester.
Yeah.
This is where we're going to create a monster, and we're going to wonder why in 10 years' time we have, this popular figure. I mean, let's look at the UK. We never have far right in the UK. We never have. It's
never thrived. Even Enoch Powell wasn't that good at it.
Yeah, even, it doesn't work here because we're a sensible people.
Well, Oswald Mosley gained no traction, did he?
Absolutely.
No real traction.
Yeah.
He was kicked out of more places than he was allowed in. We don't tolerate
BNP started raising a little bit, but then Nigel Savage's UKIP killed off the BNP because all of a sudden you had someone half decent to vote for. You didn't have to vote for the BNP. And the only reason BNP started increasing because nobody would talk about those issues, and we were scared.
One of the things people don't know a lot about this, when they picked up quite a few votes in Manchester back in the day, do you know what it was actually about? We'll get your bins emptied. Sounds insane, doesn't it? But they were the only political party going, no, weekly. They'll come up your path, get your bin, put it in the wagon, it'll be gone.
Yeah.
More people swung towards them because they weren't interested in any of the other BNP nonsense, but someone tapped into what people need.
Yes.
And it's amazing what people will overlook if you give them some of the things they probably should be getting anyway.
Yeah. And they went back to basics. That's what people care about. And that's what we need to care about in
without
Greater
the
Manchester.
other stuff from the BNP. Obviously. No, I agree 100%. What I'm going to say, because we've been chatting for quite a bit, there's actually a lot more we could have chatted about, but I think we're going to get another chance. So when you've won the position of mayor, make sure you pop back on after 6 months, like, how are you doing?
Guaranteed.
If you don't, pop back on anyway, and let's tear apart whoever does. And I'd like the key to the city. If you sort me out with that, that'd be nice. Even just a part of it. Don't be the key to the whole city. No. What does the key to a city do?
It's a ceremonial.
Do they only tell you about that when you get to be mayor? Is that one of the secrets?
Do we ever do this in Greater Manchester? Does anyone in Greater Manchester ever get this?
Let's bring it in.
Right, we'll bring it in.
And who could be better?
Yes.
The man that swears. Nick, it's been brilliant talking to you, mate. It's been a pleasure meeting you. And I hope we'll keep in touch, and I hope we'll have you back on very soon. But if I don't see you before, best of luck. I think you might actually get my vote.
I think for people out there, I want people to vote. Don't have to vote for me, but vote and have a say. And if you like what I've talked about, then I'm a legitimate candidate, and let's change Greater Manchester for the better.
Do something better.
Yes.
Nick, it's been a pleasure, mate. Thank you
welcome.
very much.
Thank
Cheers.
you.